Good morning, wanderers. Doing a hike hopefully down to Devil's Slide. We're gonna see where we get to and stuff on here. This is the trailhead off of Bezor. I can never remember the name of. I'll try to remember to put it in comments. So today's topic, we're gonna go back to the debate on the universe and the beginning. There are currently two primary sides to that event. The irony is they both seem to tell kind of the same tale. It's just one tells it in a quick time and another tells it in an expanded period of time. So, if we go to the Big Bang Theory, and in essence there was nothing, and then suddenly space expanded and the infinitely small, which is a ridiculous thing to state, because if it's infinitely small, then that means that there is no point, there is no origin of it, because it's just smaller for infinity. So that just doesn't make any sense. It's like saying infinite nothing. Because, I mean, that's what you're saying. You know, I mean, it's infinite refers to, an all-encompassing thing. Is like, time is infinite or space is infinite or, but nothing infinite, nothing is nothing forever. Nope, doesn't make sense. So, an infinitely small point just doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Now, when you look at it and you say, okay, space expanded suddenly and that created this not necessarily vacuum, but movement within space. So here's space sitting there, minding its own business, and all of a sudden it just starts expanding. And it starts expanding at exponential rates. Getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Everything inside of it getting further and further apart from it. It is, once again, that term comes around, infinitely hot. Which, again, that's not a thing. It's just what we use when we can't explain it and can't mathematically resolve it. So, you have a couple of things happening right there under the Big Bang Theory. Suddenly space expands, and suddenly particles and atoms and things like that exist and are so compressed together at first that when they expand, they heat up everything around them. Not sure exactly why. Haven't dug into that whole resolution for that situation. But nonetheless, suddenly order starts to occur, and you start to get elements, you start to get gases and particles and all these other things that start coming around because space expanded all of a sudden. So then it's a few million years to cool off enough to where things can actually come together and you know, condense a little bit because they're, you know, so busy expanding. But then they slow down and start to cool off a little bit and start to bump into each other and start to gain in size and start to merge and become other particles and become other stuff and all this stuff. Okay, so we have this little chain of events that there's nothing. All of a sudden, nothing starts expanding. And here comes a bunch of little stuff into that expansion from seemingly nowhere. So, I ask you, as wanderers, how does this story differ from there was a void, there was chaos, and everything was without form and void, had no shape, and it was all empty. And suddenly God created light, or as we discussed in a previous video, God created order. He created rules and patterns to the chaos. And after the patterns of the chaos started to develop, more things were created. The waters above and below, the heavens, and the expanse. And all things were created within this. How is that story different? Now again, take away time. We've already discussed that in another video too, where time doesn't exist. Time is our perception, is our observation, and our record of observation, and that's all it is. Time, in any other regard, doesn't exist. We can make estimations on how long it might take for our observations to see this happening or to make this happen, or it's taken me an observed amount of time to hike down this trail to this point. So, again, that time is relative only to me. The time that I have observed in coming down here and doing this and making this video, and this video is observing my progress, and it's observing my comments and my speaking, and recording it in single frames and stringing it together to make a video. And a video is simply instant moments strung together. Now, how do you suppose that car got down here in the first place? That's something else. Look at that old thing. Poor old car. That's pretty neat. So, at any rate, we take away time from this equation, and these stories, they're no different. They're no different. You're required to have faith in either one because we can prove neither one. We can provide mathematical evidences for neither one. And the mathematics we can provide can actually point towards either one as well. It doesn't solve it, but it points towards either one because they're both the same story, people. They're both the same story. But within all that has transpired since that time, because there is no debate that time existed, that there was a beginning to it all. There's no debate about that. Whether it's Big Bang or creation, it's the same thing. It began out of nothing and suddenly was there. So again, you take away the time infringement that we have placed on it based on observations we have made with things that we actually have no idea about. Can we estimate the distance from here to the sun? Yes, we can. We can mathematically estimate a lot of these things within our observable, solar system and all that. Now, when you start getting any further away than that, you once again face variables that we don't even know. There are things that we don't have a clue about. Voyagers proved that. They got into certain spots and got past certain spots, and all of a sudden we realized our solar system is way bigger than we thought, based on our mathematics, based on what we are watching with and observing with these guys. Now, mind you, somehow in all of that, that little tiny 3-meter antenna is still able to transmit back here and keep itself aligned with us for that signal to come, for us to get that signal. Now, that is what we assume, that is what we guess, that is the tale that we are told. Is it true? We have no way of knowing. Is it a lie? We have no way of knowing. What we do know is that we are apparently still getting a signal from these spacecraft that are supposedly extremely far away from us now. But again, I pose to you the possibility that that's what we expect, so that's what we see, that's what we measure, that's what we observe. Does it take months for that signal to get to us? Days, hours? Again, it's one of those things where we have to go off of what we're being told. And we're being told things by an established system that wants us to continue to believe that we are limited, that we are imprisoned by the vastness of space, and it makes it unattainable, and etc., because that holds to the belief system that is in place in all other ways, scientifically. So, if you break that down, then what do you have left? You have scientists that have to say, you know what, we don't know. They don't want to say that. They want people to believe them. They want to have the authority. They want to have the power. They want to have the confidence to say, nah, we know. It's this way. But We don't. I posit that we do not know, that we are guessing, that we are applying mathematics to a situation that perhaps does not adhere to the mathematics that we are aware of and that we currently use. You know, it's one of those things where you have to really ask yourself, how far have we advanced mathematically? You know, geometry and all of that kind of math was being studied hundreds of years ago. It was being applied. Math is not a new thing. And the math we follow is not a new thing. Now, we started adding letters here and there, and we started adding, you know, variables and constants that we assumed that we know. And we have started doing all these kind of things. But again, we haven't changed the core foundation of it. We haven't changed, you know, the basis. And that basis is measurement, is observed measurements, observed instances, observed time. And so again, you have to ask yourself, if time doesn't exist, what does that do to our math? How does that change the possibility of the observations of that? Well, in one sense, it changes it very dramatically in that you will never go backwards in time. But you also can't skip it, because it is in an instant moment. It is this moment that is both the past and the future. So, how do you apply that to math? Well, it's infinitely now. They like to use that infinite term. Well, apply it to time. So that every place that you use time in an equation, change it to the infinity symbol. It's no longer t, it's just infinite, because it's infinitely now. Infinitely now. That changes your mathematics dramatically. One more change you can do to your mathematics. We base things on, well, it's a mile, it's a kilometer, it's 100 meters, it's 20 yards, it's this far. All right? But those are conceived and agreed upon measurements, well, somewhat agreed upon measurements that have been observed and have been set in place as this is what that is. Now, I can also pose that a different way. From me to that tree is 1 unit. Just like what they say for an astronomical unit is the distance between Earth and the Sun. Well, we all know that the distance between the Earth and the Sun changes throughout the year. Our orbit isn't perfectly round around the Sun. We're not at the same exact distance all the time. It shifts, it changes. So that astronomical unit shifts and changes. Well, the same thing can be said about this, we'll call it dead tree unit. Because from me to that dead tree is this far. Nope, now it's this far. No, now it's this far. No, now it's this far. Well, now it's this far. Well, that means there's an infinite number of distances between me and this tree. So there you go again. Now distance has become infinite. Because for every distance between everything, there is an infinite number. That tree can be that way from that tree. So far. I could be behind this tree 500 billion trillion miles. That's how far that unit would be. So again, we are trying to set in place things that we observe and we can measure here, and we're trying to apply that in a grander scheme. It's not going to work because it's all changing, it's all shifting, it's all moving, it is all chaos. But there is order within that chaos. These trees grow in what appears to be a very chaotic manner. All the branches twisting and turning and going different ways. But if you look closely, if you measure closely, at some time throughout the day, every single leaf on that tree gets sunlight. Think about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. Because they grow in such a way that they ensure every leaf on that bush, that tree, every single one of them will get sunshine at some point in the day. So there is order amongst that chaos. The same thing applies. It applies to the forest. It applies to the rocks. It applies to our body hair. It applies to our eye colors, our hair, everything. There is order within the chaos, and there is chaos throughout all the order. So how do we measure chaos? We don't, because it's infinite. It's infinitely chaotic. But we can observe the order within it. Look at how many of these leaves already have sunshine. And as the day goes on, these ones back here will get more, ones down there will get more, and it actually penetrates through this whole area up here. But look, you still have sunshine down here underneath all of that, even from that bush and everything else. It's incredible how organized the chaos is. It's absolutely incredible. So there's something to ponder, that the story of the Big Bang and the story of creation are one and the same thing. They are order that rises from chaos. They are something that comes from nothing. Only in one, the power that has always been and always will be, God, said, let this happen. Let this be. Let there be order in the chaos. Let there be light. Let there be day and night. Let there be heavens and seas. Let there be land. Let there be creatures and plants, and let there be life. And so it was. And God saw it and said, wow, this is good. And it is. On the other hand, it all just happened accidentally. I know which one makes more sense to me. And I know when you look at things logically, one makes more sense. Because if you have nothing and all of a sudden something happens, what made something happen? That's one thing that they still can't answer, mathematically or any other way, on the Big Bang Theory side. Don't know, it just became unstable. What made it that way? What made it become unstable? Don't know. Because it was infinitely tiny, it was infinitely small, it was infinitely infinite. And then all of a sudden it just infinitely grew into infinite, and then it was infinitely hot, and it was infinite and infinite. Okay, you're just not making sense anymore. But that energy came from somewhere. And energy is unchangeable. We, to this day, know that we can't change energy. The pure, raw, base form of energy, we can't change it. It doesn't change. And it never stops. Which means that it never began. It always has been and always will be, and I posit to you that that energy is God. And that God, that energy, said, let there be light. Let there be life. And here we are in it. And if that God, if that energy can do that, then there's nothing that would stop it from happening in 6 days. Because that energy is everywhere. It is everything. It is the chaos. It is the order. It is the rules that provide the order in the chaos. It is everything. And if you go by the third gaining ground idea, which is absolutely insane to me, it is the simulation. It's the programmer of the simulation we live in, if you go by that theory. So, once again, logically, you come back down to the same thing. It's all the same story. How long does it take to create a universe in a computer game? Seconds. And that's based on us controlling the energy, pushing it through wires, forcing it through all these different little things, making it do what we want it to do. It still only takes seconds. If you are the energy that exists infinitely, has always existed, always will exist, exists everywhere, it is in everything, and you decide, let there be this. It's going to just exist. It's going to be instantaneous. Especially when you made the rules first. Let there be light. Let there be order in the chaos. I hope you can find order in your life. I hope you can accept that the chaos that is your life has order. You're going to get sunshine. Yeah, there's times you're going to be in the shade. You're going to be the leaf on the back of the tree from where the sun is. It's going to happen. But rest assured, rest so assured that God's light will reach you. At some point in your day, at some point in your life, God's light will reach you. When it does, bask in that glory. Accept that light, accept that love. Because it's for you. All of it's for you. It's all for us. So that we can do these things, so that we can explore it, so that we can glorify it, so that we can say, wow, what you made is good. Because it is. All right, Wanderers. That's my talk for today. Love you all. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you have an amazing adventure. Now I gotta come hike back up this monster. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to have me huffing and puffing at you. So I'm going to cut it off, and maybe we'll do another short or something later. I was hoping to get down to the creek down here, but that's just a little bit too far for me today. I don't think I'm going to make that one today. All right, man. Y'all have a good day. Be good to each other. Keep wandering.